Hello, my name is EJ Daigle, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a lesson. I hope that will help some people with transitioning to online instruction, specifically utilizing our LMS Canvas, Canvas Studio, and some Canvas quizzes as a way to transition to some online instruction as we're not able to teach on campus for these next couple weeks. All right, so some learning objectives. First thing I'm going to try to get you is an effective use of Canvas Studio. Canvas Studio is a screen capture software. Also can be used as a webcam capture software. We'll talk about some additional tools that might be used. They're very inexpensive, but they come in really, really handy. Preparing for online learning, whether it be PowerPoints, lectures, and how maybe to use some of those traditional methods. I myself am a whiteboarder writer. I like my students to have a big, thick white notebook, and I write everything on the board, and they take notes on everything I write. And then I give quizzes and exams and performance examinations based upon the things that we do in the theory classroom. A little bit more difficult to do in the online environment, but not at all impossible. So we'll talk about some of those things. I got the additional tools in there again. You'll actually see me demonstrate some of these additional tools as well with the microphone and the tablet. Communicating and plan your students. Biggest thing when you're doing online is they need to understand what's going on. Two-way communication. So number one is you laying out exactly what your expectations are. And number two, being a sounding board upon which they can get fairly quick responses. One of the worst things about online is when a student will ask a question, whether it via email or discussion board or just something like that, and they wait 24 hours. Topics go stale because of that, and students tend to spin their wheels and get frustrated. So communication is key on this stuff. So I'm going to kind of use an assessment of watch a video. That'll be our lecture. Perform into chapter questions or worksheet questions, things like that. Asking questions, via email, and then taking Canvas quizzes as an assessment. You'll see how I kind of build that out for a sample week here. And then I'm actually going to go over real simple basics on maybe building a couple questions in a Canvas quiz, and then how to publish your video. The whole topic here being kind of what you see over on the right here. I don't know if we're going to call this learn as much as teach. Give the students an area where they can practice, and then us an area where we can assess. And then with online learning, as with any learning, the ability to adjust on the fly. So when you see students are struggling, or there's a topic that isn't going right, really that assessment is your tool. A lot of times in a face-to-face class, we see that through hands going up, or we see that through blank stares on their faces. You're not going to get that face-to-face as much. So the ability to assess and be responsive to questions quickly is going to allow you to adjust and be that much better off. One of the things you'll note here, I'm going to show you here in a second, is I'm using a microphone and a tablet. These two devices that I've got combined are maybe $100 total. This is actually this additional tool, this Wacom tablet. This is not an iPad. This is not an Android tablet or anything. This is a really dumb tablet. You can actually find them for as cheap as $39. That's what I paid for mine. This one's a little fancier. It's got some extra buttons up here. But this is the size I'm running on, an 8x6.3. And it allows me to use this pen to annotate my PowerPoint slides. So I can actually annotate, and if I want to do equations, 1 + 1 = 2, I can do stuff like that. If I want to change colors, that's another thing I can do. I can go to an ink color and I can grab a different color and highlight things or do different colors in a circuit or something like that. Or for that matter, if I wanted to erase certain things, let's say I wanted to just erase pieces that are on the screen right now. Very, very simple to do. I bought mine on Amazon a couple years ago, and I'll be honest with you, it was one of the best investments I ever made. I'm still in yellow here. I don't want to be in yellow though. Let me change that to the color I want here. Color, and I like the red color. Kind of gives me the most vibrant I've found in the past. So just a nice tool. So if you added that with just some sort of external microphone, you can see my 1 + 1 = 2 stayed there. So I'll erase that for you there as well. There we go. It's all gone now. All right. This is the this is the microphone that I use. Again, I don't even think I paid $46.99. I might have paid that much. But between my two devices, I'm less than $100 into some really quality studio level tools. They're not fancy. They're not hard to hook up. They're plug and play. They're both USB devices. They're the simplest thing in the world. You plug them in and they work. And that's what's really, really nice about those. All right. So first off, I want to talk about what I'm doing right now. I'm actually using a different recording software, but I've used Studio quite a bit in the past. I'm going to discard my ink annotations. But if I go into my Canvas course right now, and I wanted to create some videos that I could use online, or if I wanted to develop a week's worth of material here. So like, let's say I'm teaching a class and I really need about maybe 5 hours of contact or 4 hours of contact. Maybe it's a theory course. What I might do is kind of what you see here. I've got a video lesson set up. And when the students go into that video lesson, that lesson will say, watch the attached lesson before attempting the worksheet or quiz. And they can literally click on that lesson and actually see the lesson play, listen to the lesson.
Testing.
You can see I start all my videos with the testing, 1, 2, 3. But they can actually go through that and watch that whole entire, 40-minute video. They can pause it. They can go back. I treat that about like an hour's worth of material, that video. On top of that video, then I have a worksheet. If you click on this worksheet, you'll see the worksheet has a due date. Due date is March 18th. And complete the attached worksheet, answer all questions in Microsoft Word, and submit online. Now, I may need to be a little more prescriptive on that. But that could be, they could shoot me an email with a Word document with all the answers, or they might send me, or they might post it directly into Canvas as well. So just be very specific as to how you want to receive that. But in this case, it's just attached as a file. So as a week 11 worksheet document that they can click on. They can type right into that document the answers and send it back. I mean, if they really want to get crazy, I guess they could print it and handwrite and scan it and send it back. I've even had students that, for whatever reason, printed it out, took a picture of it, and sent me the pictures back. And as long as you're willing to kind of work with them, especially as they're learning how you're going to work in the online course, be prescriptive, but also help them, meet those needs, or meet your desires anyways. And then I also have a spot where I have the chapter questions. So the worksheet was worth 10. The chapter questions were worth 15. If I click on this assignment, it says read chapter 11 in your textbook, complete the end of chapter questions, answer questions using Microsoft Word, and submit online. So it just tells them what to do, how much it's worth, when it's due, March 20th at 11:59 p.m. They can mouse over that and see the time it's due, and then they're off and running. And I only have this as a 5-question quiz right now, but I will tell you for my actual course, this will probably be more like a 30-point quiz, a 30-question quiz. So I've got a fairly equal amount of points tied up in the worksheet and the chapter questions, and an equal amount of points in my weekly quiz that I'm going to get. And my goal is out of these 4, I call them sub-assignments in the module here, is that I'm going to get about 5 hours of contact out of the students. Anybody that chooses not to watch this video lesson is going to be very sad, and they're going to realize really quick that if they didn't watch the video lesson, that the quiz is going to be extremely difficult. Like when you click on this quiz, it'll actually show you the quiz covers material from lesson 11, video, worksheet, and chapter questions. And then I have it be an open book quiz. So all those quizzes open book. It's imperative that you study, as this is a timed quiz. So I only give them 30 minutes for the 30 questions. So theoretically, could they look up every question? They could try, but I will tell you, if they were trying to look up, between the video and the maybe the worksheet and the chapter, they're going to spend way more than a minute on every question. Odds are they could look up a couple and get by with that, but to get through that quiz, I do have it timed to try to make it so that it takes them 30 minutes to get through 30 questions. All right, so you got a kind of an idea of kind of a nice structure for a week, and other people will do discussion boards and other things. This will work good for a course maybe that has some calculation intensive material or some theory intensive material. If it has some dry lab opportunities, you can do some lab components as well. for hands-on labs, like welding two pieces of metal together, this is going to work out real well. But you could have some pictures of welds or some processes or setups and ask, what would you do, or what's wrong with this picture, or, what type of weld this is. So there's lots of opportunities to make this at least related to the lab component. All right. So we've kind of covered that. One of the big things is, when I'm recording video, I always start off by, maybe running a 30-second demo. So even before I recorded this video today, I ran a 10-second demo where I just do a test 1, 2, test 1, 2, and I test my Wacom tablet, make sure it's working, make sure my microphone is queuing up nicely. And then as long as that's the case, everything else seems to work out pretty well. And then I know that I'm not going to spend 30 minutes recording a video that's going to get deleted. The other thing I would tell you is when you're utilizing the Studio software, make sure you utilize it in full screen. So I'll show you what the Studio software is. Studio software allows you to do, exactly what I am doing right now, which is to do screen capture and audio capture. There's two ways. There we go. There's two ways you can get to the Studio icon. In my course, in the tree for the course itself, there's the Studio icon right there. And then there's also Studio icon on the outside here as well, where you can get to the Studio icon. It's kind of a funky looks like a little screen with some connections or people hooked up to it. I'm not sure what the icon is, but you get the idea. Let me show you in the real world what that thing looks like. If we go back to Canvas and I go to my course, let's say, I'm just going to go to courses. I'm going to go to my 2020 courses, ENGR 2010. So I'll go into that course. This is where I can go down. I can see my week 11 stuff that I've created. And I'm showing you how I'd create one of those videos right now. If I'm in the home for that course, ENGR 2210 under home, if I scroll down, I can see Studio right there. I can also see Studio right here. So there's another place, just like any Microsoft or internet-based web page. Seems like there's multiple ways you can get to the same location. I'm going to click on Studio right here. What that's going to do is it's going to bring up a listing of videos I've done. So I actually did an online instruction one earlier, and I'm going to do a second one here because what I want to do is I want to be able to show you how you launch Studio. So we've opened up Studio right now. These are videos I've done. So a PLC video, motor starter video, machine vision video, troubleshooting video, PLC math, and compare instructions. So I can see all of these things are in here. If I want to add a new video, all I do is I click on Add. Or you actually add, let me take that back for a second. Add allows me to bring in a video. I could bring in a video that I've recorded, for YouTube, or I could bring in a genuine YouTube video and paste those in there as videos. I gotta be careful. That add is actually me bringing in other videos. So if I click on Add, what you're gonna see is I browse files, and I can go look and find, in my videos, maybe there's a Fanuc robot video that I wanna throw in here, so I throw the Fanuc robot video in there. But that's not what we're going to do right now. What we're going to do is we're going to record a video. So when I click on record, I can do two things. I can either do a screen capture or a webcam capture. Now, webcam capture is nice if you want to be a talking head and have a face-to-face conversation, so students are seeing you as you're presenting. In my mind, I think a screen capture is a little bit more useful because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the material. I'm going to do some calculations. I'm going to talk about material. I'm going to highlight some points, things like that. So I'm going to go to screen capture. That's going to open up our screen capture software. So I'm going to open that up right there. You'll see that'll take a second to load up. It really is kind of a third-party utility. When you go over here, you can see my narration. You can see my voice. You want to make sure that you have the right microphone. So I could use the internal microphone on my laptop. If you do that, just make sure you are speaking loudly and clearly, loud and clear, because the microphone on your laptop is not near as good as what I'm using, the Snowball microphone, which again for $47 is worth its weight in gold. And so I've got that selected, so I know that's good. I can see it's working good as I talk here. The other thing is I always make sure I'm on full screen. If you do 480p, you're going to get a portion of the screen. If you do 720p, you're going to get another portion of the screen. And I just say, you know what, do full screen. I want the entire screen. And then what I'm going to do is when I'm ready to go, I'm going to hit record right here. When I'm done recording, I'm going to hit pause. And that will allow me to stop it, to download it, and then it'll place that video in here. It'll ask you to name it as well. Now in this case, I'm not going to launch a second screen recording software because I'm already recording. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out, but we're going to pretend that I hit record, and it will give me a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then I'd be off and running. So we'll pretend that we went to record and went 3, 2, 1, and we're off and recording now. All right. So we were already recording to begin with, but the goal with that was to kind of show you folks where you would go to launch Studio. And I think you guys can all be mindset of where that is. It's pretty easy to find. It's pretty easy to use. So the additional tools we talked about, I think you can see how these are going to be handy now, right? That Wacom tablet, $50. The Blue Ice, this is just one example. This is not a high-end microphone. It's not a low-end microphone. This is a middle of the range microphone. USB, very, very simple, plug and play, easy. All right, now let me show you what I would do in an actual lesson. Let's say we were in a class that was discussing basic electricity, and we've been working on Ohm's law. So we're in a chapter of the book right now where we're talking about Ohm's law, and we're talking about series circuits. So what I might do is I might want to review with these folks, what is Ohm's law? Well, Ohm's law is it's the mathematical relationship of voltage, current, and resistance. And what that is that voltage is equal to the current times the resistance. And in a series circuit, the voltage and the resistance will generate that current, and these are electrons that I call I, that stands for intensity, that flow around that circuit. And because it's a series circuit and there's only one path for current to flow, the same amount of electrons will flow through the 1K ohm resistor that'll flow through the 470 ohm resistor. So fairly, fairly simple. Now there's some things that we'll want to do. Let's say I want to know, my big thing that I want to know right now is I want to know what the voltage across R1 is. There's several ways I could get there. I could do that as a proportion of R1 to the total resistance times 12 volts. I'm going to do it a little bit of a longer method. I'm going to calculate some other things first. I'm going to say, well, I know if I know the current, I know the voltage, if I know the resistance, so on and so forth. First thing I'm going to do is, maybe I'll even do that. Maybe I won't say, let's calculate the voltage of R1. Maybe I'll say, to start off with, just to make it a little bit more sound, let's say we're going to start off with, instead, I want to know the total current. So the total current, what is the total current? Well, the relationship is current times resistance equals voltage. So if I divide each side by R, then I know that I equals voltage times voltage divided by resistance. So I've got that as an option. But if I want to know IT, what I'm really looking at is the total voltage divided by the total resistance. And in this case, there's two resistors in series. In a series circuit, the total resistance is the sum of all of the resistors in the series circuit. So 1,000 ohms plus 470 ohms is 1,470 ohms. You know, why 1,000? Because 1K stands for 1,000 and 470 is 470. Now the total voltage is V1. This is VT. So I don't have anything else I need to do other than to say that IT equals VT. Oop, let me go back to my nice little eraser tool here, right? I already wrote that down once, probably don't have to write that down again. All right, pointer options here, pen. The total voltage, which is 12 volts, divided by the total resistance, which is 1,470 ohms. Now, I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so I'm going to hit escape real quick. I'm going to keep my ink annotations. I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to go 12 volts divided by 1,470. Now, what you'll notice here is, if I kind of mouse over here, 0.00816. So I'm going to tell my students, and I've been telling them in class, that I always want to express decimal answers in the correct scientific notation. So 10 to the minus 3 would get me to 8.16, and 10 to the minus 3 in the world of electronics, we call that milliamps. So that's going to be 8.16 milliamps is going to be my answer. So I can come back in here now, and I can write 8.16 milliamps. I will tell you that it takes a little bit of practice. I've done literally hundreds of videos on YouTube with the Wacom tablet, and my writing still looks a little bit like it's a kindergartner's. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Now, what we started off was that we wanted to know the voltage of R1. Okay. And we know that voltage is current times resistance. So I need to know the current through R1. I need to multiply that by the resistance of R1. So VR1 in this case, now remember, if I know the current, if I know the total current is 8.16 milli, that's actually the current through each of the resistors, because all of the electrons go through both of the resistors. So I'm going to have 8.16 milliamps times R1, which is 1 k ohm. There's an example of me having trouble writing with that. And that's going to be 8.16 volts. I don't need my calculator for that fancy one. If I want to know VR2 is via Kirchhoff's voltage law, if you read in the chapter. Kirchhoff's voltage law says if I start here at 0 volts and I go around the circuit, then VR2 plus VR1 better equal positive 12, right? So if I don't know what VR2 is, but I know that I do know that V total, right? Let me go back to an eraser here. I do know that V total equals VR1 plus VR2. So VT equals VR1 plus VR2. There we go. Then I do know VR1 now is 8.16 volts. So then VR2 equals VT, which is 12 volts, minus VR1, which is 8.16 volts. And I think I should get 3.84 volts DC. Can you see how we got all these nice answers here? They're all kind of, those two add up to 12. That's my current that I used to generate the voltage. There was my total resistance. I could even calculate wattage. I could do all kinds of things. It's not meant to be a lesson in Ohm's law. It's meant to be a lesson in how can I do some of these calculations that I would normally do on the whiteboard, but do them in a virtual environment. And the nice thing about this is a student at this point could pause the video, they could go back, and they could watch it a second time. So this is one of the advantages. So maybe a disadvantage is you can't be looking at those students face to face as you're doing this. Can't see the glossed over eyes on every student that's watching your video. However, you can know that if a student's struggling, they can go at their own pace. If they want to watch that calculation 3 times, go for it. As a matter of fact, I'd encourage them to watch the video 3 times. You know, there's no reason. They're not at the mercy of this class ending in 45 or 50 minutes or something like that. So let's say we've done that now, right? We've given them a video lesson, and they've watched it, and they feel like they're ready to move on. So now what they're going to do is maybe they're going to go do your homework, right? So they're going to go in and they're going to work on that worksheet. And so they've got the Word doc, they download it, they read the questions in the worksheet, they answer the questions in Microsoft Word. Maybe they post that to Canvas. Maybe they just email it back to you, keep it nice and simple. And boom, they're off and running, you know, and you grade those like you would grade a paper worksheet if they did it. They can do the same thing with the textbook questions. They open up a Microsoft Word document. They write week 11, chapter 11 homework questions, and they list them 1 through 11. Maybe you ask them to list the question and the answer. I kind of like doing that, just it makes it easier for me. And you grade that as well. You know, and then there could be several other things you could do, right? I mean, you know, you could ask them, you know, do calculations and drawings. You could do, you know, if it's a CNC machining class, they obviously could write some CNC code and they could post that to Canvas. So there's lots of different things that they may do. Now I'll show you a sample quiz though. So we've got some data now, right? So you've got a worksheet that you know, maybe a student got 12 out of 15 and a unit chapter questions. If there's 15 points there too, maybe they got, you know, 13 out of 15 on that. The quiz is nice because what this does is it allows us to really assess them, right? Like any homework, they're working at their own rate. They're looking things up in the book. They're doing all these things. You can do a quiz, open or close book. You can use the Lockdown browser. I'm not a huge fan of the Lockdown browser. If I want to make something, if I want to make sure that students are getting through it on their own and they're not looking everything up, then what I do is I usually like to put a time limitation on it. I think that does the same type of thing that a lockdown browser does, because the fact of the matter is there's no way, if they could be offsite with lockdown browser with another computer open. They could be offsite with lockdown browser, on their phone. I've had people say, oh, I need to watch you on video while you're taking it. I mean, all these things are just, you're putting all these hurdles in there. I think it's easier to say, you know what, it's an open book quiz. We'll do a closed book midterm. We'll do a closed book final, and those are all great. But your quizzes will be open book. However, there's 30 questions in 30 minutes. And if your plan is to look them all up, you'll get through about halfway and you'll fail the quiz. So it's important that you study. Some cases, instructors may say, you know what, I'm only going to give one offering. Some instructors might say, I'm going to treat it more like a homework assignment. You can attempt it 3 times. And you can learn from the things you got wrong and fix them so you don't get them wrong. The beauty of these Canvas quizzes is they are self-grading. What that means is students get immediate response from what they've done. So that's the huge advantage. So let me show you. I'm going to discard my ink annotations here, and I'm going to go into Canvas again. And I'll go back to home. And I did not upload my video, but you would upload your video once you're done recording, but I'm not done recording. So now I've got the video lesson they're going to watch. I got the worksheet they're going to do. I got the chapter questions they're going to do. And now I've got a Canvas quiz. So I'm going to go into the Canvas quiz. And if you have never done these types of things, like what you do is you're in week 11 module, you click add, and you can add an assignment. An assignment would be like my worksheet or my chapter questions. I'd add that. If I want to add a quiz, I just go to the drop down and I do a new quiz, and I could add a new quiz. I could call it quiz 12 as an example, right? And then you could drill into quiz 12. I'm not going to drill into quiz 12 because we're actually in week 11. So I'm going to say, you know what? This is the quiz for week 11. So I go into week 11 quiz, and I type in some instructions. If I go edit here, I can type in any instructions I want. This quiz covers the material from lesson 11 video, worksheet, and chapter questions. Although this quiz is open book, it is imperative that you study, as this is a time quiz. Once you start the quiz, you'll have 30 minutes to answer 30 questions, and I might write in 1 attempt only, or something like that. So any instructions you want to put in here, you can, and that's off and running. Make sure anything you do, you hit save at the end. Don't publish the quiz until they're ready to take it, or make it available from March 23rd from 4 to 10 p.m. or something. Here's the other distinct thing. I'm going to hit save here real quick. So I got a due date of March 23rd on here. One of the other things that I highly recommend as you look at this is when it comes to due dates, my week 11 assignments, this particular class meant 2 hours on Tuesdays and 2 hours on Thursdays. I would highly recommend not making assignments due on Saturday at midnight or Sunday at noon. We traditionally don't have classes then. So I tell you to, there's no sense in making them do at obscure times, and it's not going to help your students at all. I try to make things due, and I don't know what days I picked on these. I can go back and look, I guess. In my case, the class meets on Tuesday and Thursday. So I might say, you know what, this week 11 worksheet will be due on March 17th at 11:59 p.m. So I like how Canvas does that. It doesn't say March 18th at midnight, because that's just a confusion factor for students. They'll say, oh, is it due on Wednesday at midnight or Tuesday at midnight, or Thursday at midnight? They'll screw that up. So any way we can eliminate any possible contentions just makes everybody's life easier. So that's in there now, and then I'll go back to the week 11 stuff here. Let's look again. And so I'll hit refresh so we can see that here. So now it says March 17th. And I might make this one March 19th, because that's the Thursday, right? So if that's the Thursday of the class, which I would normally meet on Thursday anyways, I might say, yeah, there's the 19th as a Thursday. And it also gives you a good chance to say, okay, if we're taking attendance, I'll use that as my attendance for the course. So as long as I get this turned in by, this assignment turned in by the 17th at midnight, then you're counted for attendance for that day. And the 19th at midnight, you're counted for attendance for that day. And maybe, so the 20, 21, 22, so 23rd, I think that's a Tuesday. Let's see. I want you to take the quiz on the 23rd. And this is a time where the quiz I might open up a little different. Rather than just having a due date, I might actually make the quiz available, from the 23rd is actually a Monday. So I'm going to make that a Tuesday as well, because I would normally meet on Tuesdays. But I might say it's going to be available on March 24th from, let's say, 8 a.m. to March 24th at 4 p.m. or something like that. Or I might even say, I got time, I don't care. I'll say 10 p.m. So what I've done now is I've given those students, a real wide window, which this thing will open up, and that's the only time it'll be available. Oop, March 24th, 10 p.m. Lock date cannot be before due date. Oh, so I got to be at the same time. So I can I'll make it 11:59 p.m. then. Why not? 11:59 p.m. So now they are the same. So now they've got essentially, a big chunk of time where they can take it, whatever's most resourceful for them. The other thing is, once you've created these, it's very important. You can see in my previous weeks, you can see all of the green. It's very important that you make these available. Otherwise, the students can't see any of them. So now they'll be able to see them. They'll be able to actually see when the quiz is available and when it's due. I do want to go back into that quiz, though, and show you a little bit here. So when I go in and edit this quiz, editing the details, like when it's due and the directions that I had here, that's all done from the details window here. So the name of it, all of this stuff, the due date, the number, well, number of points, not really, but the multiple attempts and shuffle. I always shuffle your answers. That's just a really good idea. But that's all available from the details. The questions is where you actually insert your questions. So I've got a couple created here. Normally this would be like 30 questions, 30 points. You can make them more than 1 point each if you like, but I'm going to add a question just so we can go over some of the details of this maybe. And I like to label the questions with questions numbers. So I'll call this Q006, and let's do something related to what we were studying here, right? So we talked about, we'll talk about total resistance. So let's go back in there. The total resistance, this will be really simple, of a series circuit with two resistors of 500 ohms each will be, and I might just put in a little blank there, and I might make this a multiple choice and say, well, I know the correct answer. When you get down to the multiple choice, it's going to ask you the first one, 1,000 ohms. You'll see how it's green. The next one's red. I'm going to put that as 500 ohms. Maybe somebody thinks, they're both 500. They're a total of 500. Maybe someone thinks it's the parallel version, which would be 2 in parallel would be 250 ohms. And I could put another answer in here, like none of the above if I wanted. Or I could just delete this answer and say, you know what, I only want 3 responses. You can add more answers too. So whatever you want to do, you can do with that. I'm going to update that question. I'm going to hit save. And the neat thing about this is I now have 6 questions. So if I wanted to make this a 30-point quiz, I'm just going to keep adding questions till I get to 30 points. This is where online instruction is a lot of work for the instructor ahead of time. But if done correctly, it's not as much work on the tail end. What that means is you don't have to stand up and deliver it necessarily, but you do have to constantly communicate with students. You may have to grade some things like your worksheets and chapter questions and other things that you're asked the students to do. But like these quizzes, you can make these in such a way that you get some assessment that grades itself, and the students get immediate feedback, which they desperately want. They want to know what their points are. You know how it is when you were in school and took a quiz or an exam, you just couldn't wait till you got that grade in to see what you got. Now that I have this quiz created, and again, it's not as big as I'd like, I can always click on this preview button. And this is going to show me the quiz like I'm a student. So if I want to know what the quiz looks like if I was a student, I can actually take the quiz now. So it says, I'd read the instructions. This quiz covers the material from Lesson 11 video, worksheet, and chapter questions. Although this quiz is open book, it is imperative that you study as this is a timed quiz. Once you start the quiz, you'll have 30 minutes to answer 30 questions, 1 attempt only. So here I go. If the resistance in a series circuit is doubled, the total current will decrease. I know that one. Now, if I had to go look that up right now and I spent 2 minutes looking it up, I'd be consuming more time than I have. Given the circuit and the figure, what voltage would you expect to be read across R1? Oh, so this one's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm going to bring up a calculator, and I'm going to say, okay, I've got 12 volts, and then I've got a 500 ohm and a 470 ohm. So I'm going to divide that by 970. That's my current. And the voltage across R1 then would be that current times 500 ohms in R1. I'm getting 6.185. 6.18. Well, that must be that one. It must have rounded to 6.19. That looks like the most correct answer. All right, and you can see how real quickly I've got maybe a minute. If I'm doing 30 of these, I've got maybe a minute, and that one consumed 40, 50 seconds. So it's important that I do know what I'm doing here. All right, question 3. A technician has installed an ammeter to measure the total current as shown. What are your concerns? Let's see here. I don't know what my concerns are, so let's see what the answers are here. Circuit must be de-energized to measure current. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It has to be on to generate current. Circuit has to be on, so that's not it. The ammeter polarity is incorrect. Well, I got a positive. Let me see where the positive is here. Looks like I can't tell. Oh, yeah, there's a positive and a negative on that side. And that's an A. Maybe I can't tell. Positive, negative. But it looks like ammeter polarity is correct, so I don't think that's an issue. Oh, that's right. Ammeters need to be in series, don't they? This ammeter is actually in parallel with R1. I remember EJ saying something or reading something in the chapter about breaking the circuit and the ammeter being in series with R1. It's got to be this one. So I'm going to go with that. Let's see. Question 4. Current is directly proportional to, well, it's V equals I times R. And so if I divide by R, I equals V over R. If voltage goes up, current goes up. It must be voltage. That must be what it is. Because if resistance went up, current would go down. That makes sense. If the applied voltage in a series circuit is 12 volts and resistance is 2250. Now here's an example where I get really specific, and I should do this in my lecture video as well. I'm going to tell them exactly how I want that answer to be formatted. So I want the answer in milliamps, x.xx. So in this case, they're going to do something simple here, like 12 divided by 2250. They're going to get 0.005333333. I don't want all of that. Remember, 10 to the minus 3 would take me to here, which is 5.33 space MA. So I'm going to give them the exact answer format I want. x.xx 5.33 space MA, so that they get it in the format I want it. This is one of those examples where sometimes students will do stuff like write 5.330 MA. And you know what? And they may email me or get a hold of me and say, hey, can I get credit? And a lot of times I'll give them credit for that. But I will tell them, the first time, hey, I get what you did, but you got to follow that answer format. So sometimes on the first test, I'll be a little bit more liberal. And that is a good discussion point, in the next lecture to make sure that they've got it. Total resistance, this is the one we created, right? The total resistance of a series circuit with 2 resistors of 500 ohms each. So 500 ohm resistors, there's 2 of them, and they're in series. That's got to be 1,000 ohms. All right, I'm going to hit now before I submit my quiz though, let me screw one of these up, right? Let's do resistance here. I know that's wrong, but I just want to show you what this looks like to the students then. They're going to submit their quiz, and they're going to scroll down, and they're going to see, look, oh, I got 5 out of 6 correct on this quiz. I got 5 out of 6 points, or I got 28 out of 30. Okay, this one, that was good. Oh, yeah, I knew that. Oh, I got the one with the 6.19. That's perfect. Oh, excellent. Ammeter in series. I'm doing good. Oh, what the heck happened here? Current is directly proportional to, oh, that's right. If resistance goes up, current goes down. So it's inversely proportional to resistance. So it's directly, so they can see the correct answer and they can learn from this. The 5.33 milliamps, that's the format I wanted. You'll see, oh, I see what EJ did as an instructor though. I guess if I'd have put that in, he'd have been okay. Or if I wouldn't have put the space in, he'd been okay. I do that sometimes on the first one, but I tell them, I say, look, from now on, I really need it in the right format. So pay attention to that answer format. Total resistance of a series circuit with 2 resistors. Oh, that looks great. So now I can see exactly how they're doing. When I go into the, to the assessment for this stuff, it's going to be real obvious, a single week. This course meets 5 hours a week. And I know that they spent, an hour working with my video. they probably spent, and some of them will spend 4 to 5 hours on the worksheet and the chapter questions, depending on how, maybe more, depending on how difficult it is. And they're spending at least a half an hour on the quiz. And hopefully, with that quiz getting immediate feedback, you'll see that many of them will also be spending another 10 or 15 minutes reviewing the quiz to see what they got wrong. So because they're getting that immediate feedback. And before you know it, this would be 30 points now. You'd have done 55 points for the week, and you've done some good online instruction that is going to support them both in the hands-on world, but from an online instruction or a web-based or distance learning instruction side, this is going to work out really, really well for you. So if anyone has any questions, concerns, wants to know anything, or come see any of the stuff that I use as far as doing online instruction, both with Canvas Studio, Canvas quizzes, or any of my other assessments that I use, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, this is E.J. Daigle, Dean of Robotics and Manufacturing. Thank you.